Welcome to video 9 in the bridge design series. This is about creating a beam section. So in this video we're going to look at how our typical sections for the beams are created. So first of all, just load up the program again. And if we go to our beams tab, here's all of our typical sections. If I wanted to open that typical section up, we just click on the edit button and that will take us through to the cell library. And here we can see a typical section. So if I look at the elements that are inside this model or cell, we'll just have a look at, what we have to have. So we have to have a shape. So it's either a shape or it could be a group tile as well. That has to exist on a level called CaddPro Bridge 3D Beam section. If we're going to have an infill, that needs to sit on the level called CaddPro Bridge 3D Beam section infill. That infill has to overlap um, with the main shape by around 20 mil. This section, when we build it up also, it has to be wider than what you think it needs to be. So just remember that the program always trims the beam back. It can't extend it. So when you're building up the typical section, make sure it's wider than what you need it to be. So the other things we need in the file are these 3 points. And if we look at those points, we've got the one at the top. So that has to be on a level called centerline top flange. The one at the centroid or the center of gravity is called centerline center of gravity. And one on the soffit called centerline soffit. So they're the 3 points that we need. So I'll just have a quick look at some of the other types of sections you can create. So this beam here doesn't have the infill. Here's another beam. You may not, in this case, they may not want to trim the top flange. Likewise for this one, there wouldn't be any trimming of the top flanges. And we've got one here that's, this is a group tile, so it's got a void in the center there. So as long as these typical sections can be extruded by normal solid commands, we should be able to use them in this. So if you wanted to create a completely new section, you've got 2 choices. You can either add a model, but definitely the easiest way is to just copy the existing model, so or one of the existing typical sections. So if I go copy model, and so we'll just call this one new, new section. So that's copied that model to this new name. So one of the main things we have to have is the model name must start with this word section in it. And that way it'll appear in our dialog box. So if it doesn't have that word section in it, it won't show up in the dialog box. So the model has to be a 2D model, so make sure it's a 2D model. And the last attribute you need to make sure of is to have the use cell attribute ticked on, or else it won't show up as a cell. And just remember that the coordinate 0, 0, that's the origin of the cell. So if we're going to modify it, we'll just do a quick modify on this beam here. If I wanted to make it a bit deeper, I would probably leave 0, 0 alone, and we'll just stretch it up. Small amount. So we'll use the stretch command, and we'll stretch it up 500 mil. Yeah, you would need to make other modifications to this section, but that's just demonstrating, some of the things you could do. So that's how you would go about creating a new typical section. Okay, just to recap on those main points, the cell library is pointed to by a configuration variable called CaddPro Bridge 3D Beam Cell Lib. You can open the cell library by hitting the Edit button on the Typical Section tab. You can either create or copy a model. The easiest way is to copy a model. The model name must start with the word section. The model must be a 2D model. Must have a shape or a group tile on a level name called CaddPro Bridge 3D Beam Section. The section should be wider if you want the program to trim it back. If you have a void and need infills, a shape must be on a level name called CaddPro Bridge Beam Section Infill. Make sure the two shapes overlap by around 20 millimeters. You need 3 points, one at the top flange, one at the center of gravity, and one at the soffit. The coordinate 0, 0 is the origin, and that's also the point that the section is extruded about. You can have other construction elements in the file. That concludes the video.